mic. Había cerrado, but they opened.
You are.
Okay, we're ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of West Miami Planning and Zoning Board meeting of October 26, 2001. Members present are Natalie Milian,
Yes, present.
Eugenio Gonzalez.
Yes.
Alvaro Laredo,
Here.
Diana Rio, and myself, Joe Paz. Also present is Juan Pena, Planning and Zoning Director, and Jose Villalobos, City Attorney, is excused. And for the record, it is 7:36 p.m. Mr. Pena?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Tonight, the first thing on your agenda is the approval of the minutes from August 24th and September 28th.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, but you were not here on the 24th, August 24th meeting. You were excused. The members that were present were myself, Natalie Milian, and Alvaro Laredo.
Wait a minute.
So I'll make a motion to approve the August 24th minutes because I was excused on September 28th.
Okay, I second that.
Okay,
Okay.
on the motion, Natalie Milian,
Yes.
Alvaro Laredo.
Yes.
And I vote yes, so the August 24, 2021 minutes have been approved.
Okay, now you have September 28th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting for September 28 as printed in front of us.
I second the motion.
Okay, on that motion, Eugenio Gonzalez.
Yes.
Alvaro Laredo,
Yes?
Diana Rio.
Yes.
And the motion passes since myself and also Natalie Milian were excused.
Correct.
That meeting.
Okay, under new business, you have none. Under old business, you have agenda item number 2, which is continued discussion of the review of the ordinances remanded by the city commission to the zoning board for possible action. There is several ordinances that I have handed out between the August 24th and the September 28th meeting. Tonight, if you can, or I don't know if you've had time to review, ordinance number 2004-03, which is the ordinance establishing the fee for the special use permit for applications, what it costs to apply. The ordinance that you have in front of you lists it as $500 for a special use permit application and $1,200 for apartment or commercial districts for a special use permit, $1,200. The city's recommending at this time $3,000 for the expense of the ordinances. And that includes an ad in the general circulation paper, which is the Miami Herald. That ad usually runs from $800 to $1,000. And the certified mail of all the homes within a 500 radius of the city. However, one of the suggestions by Vice Mayor Diaz-Padrón is to increase that radius from 500 feet to whatever you think is appropriate. 1,000 feet or anything that will include more of a group from the residents that live in the city.
Okay,
May I, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman?
Each, just so for your knowledge, each certified mail is about $6 per letter that we mail out, and usually there's anywhere from 80 to 150 letters that we mail in a 500-foot radius.
just in the 500-foot radius.
That's correct.
So we can assume it would be double if it was a
If we,
1,000-foot.
if we go that into 1,000 feet radius.
We had a brief discussion, I don't know if it was on record or not on record in the previous meeting, that, yeah, for a large building or a large business, it will be fair, but for the small person that will have to assume that expenditure, it will kill them. It will actually,
That's, I agree with you 100%, but I believe our city attorney said that we could not,
Well, the expense doesn't change because of whether it's a residential property or a commercial property. It's just at that point, once, if we are to exempt them from the special use requirement of the fee, then at that point, all of yous are paying for their fee. Because if you that are requiring the service don't pay for it, somebody else has to chip in. Because it's going to be done, so. And that's why usually the expense is carried by the applicant. If the applicant's gonna do a second story, $3,000 to an addition of $50,000 or $60,000, it's not really something outrageous.
right, but as far as, I don't know how the board feels, as far as the increase to $3,000, I wouldn't have a issue or problem with that. It's the 500 versus 1,000-foot radius.
Well, again, the commissioner's, or the vice mayor's concern is the participation of folks in the city, further in the city, that some complaints have come out over the years at commission meetings. Well, we didn't know what was going on at the time that the buildings were being built. So supposedly it's just to get further into the city, because since most special use commercial properties or buildings are built on the commercial corridor, the 500 radius feet doesn't really go deep into the city's population.
Okay, and city staff cannot make a recommendation in this issue, I would assume.
We present you what their request is, and we can only present you with what it costs. And that's why we recommend the amount of the $3,000. But as far as how many feet you decide to go, whether it's 500, 750, or 1,000, that's all for you to decide if you're really concerned about participation in one of these hearings.
Okay, and Mr. Bennett, the city's still posting the property prior to the meetings, correct?
That's one of the requirements
That you've always been doing,
on every street that it abuts.
okay? All right, what does any comments from the board?
I have a question, Mr. Penna. Do you have any extra copies of these? Because I wasn't told that we had to bring them back today, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not able to review them right now.
I'll give you mine. I know it pretty much.
Thank you.
what is the number?
I don't have it with me.
Or
The
is the one you just passed out?
2004-03. And this is the existing ordinance. Do you want to take a peek at it?
I just want to take a look at, to see if I find it.
If you want to take a short break, I can go downstairs and run a bunch of copies.
No, I'm pretty sure you
No,
handed it
no.
out to us. I don't have a problem with the $3,000, I do have a problem with the 500 feet. Because that will incur more expenses for the city.
Definitely it would, and more paperwork for city staff as well, but maybe since Mr. Pena threw out a number, 750, maybe we can compromise and go that route?
Well, if I may, I do this for a living. I prepare these notifications for other cities, not for the city of West Miami, because that's handled in-house. Different cities have different requirements in terms of the radius that you have to notify. You have cities that are 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. Typically Coral Gables has 1,000 feet. It's the certification process, sending the certified mailers, that make it more costly. Other cities have regular mail, and then they notify the abutting property owners via certified mail, which is, the guy in front of you, diagonal from you, and behind you. So that's like, I don't know, 6, 7, depending on your location. those go certified mail. So the cost drastically drops. You can
Right.
keep it at 500 feet. Whether people get involved, whether they receive the notices via certified mail or regular mail, I don't think that would have any consequence. I would be more inclined to be opposed or in favor of something that's closer to me, that's within 500 feet to me, than something that is 1,000 feet away from me. I think it's just the civic involvement is lacking overall.
It is.
I think if
have
you're
to agree
interested
with
in
that.
in what's happening in the city, you would follow these meetings, you would be involved, you would come to City Hall and see what's posted, see what's on the agenda, request. You can go online and say, send me emails of the agendas every month, but that's on you. Just because you receive something, you're 1,000 feet away, I don't know that that would create more
Involvement.
So
Plus you
I,
can watch on YouTube the meetings. They're
Ex-
all
exactly,
posted on YouTube
exactly.
as well.
yeah, and this costs nothing. So, I don't
Well,
know, to
just to give
increase-
you a little bit of history, the certified mail came about during the era of 2005 to 2008, when the first concept of the buildings were being introduced. There was a lot of folks that would always say, come up here to the commission and say, well, we never got notified. And there was no way for us, we had an envelope that said, yeah, the address where it went to, we make copies of that, but there was nothing that said, oh, I received it. So that's when, back then, Commissioner Blanes suggested, well, let's send it all out certified mail, that way the post office is gonna deliver it, we're gonna have a return receipt.
And
You
you
can't
have
say you
proof.
never got it.
And the city has evidence or proof that.
Correct,
they
and
were sent.
that's how that evolved. So that's why we went to certified mail on those notifications.
How about one thing, can we do 500 certified and anything outside it's up to 1,000, from 501 to 1,000 foot regular mail?
It's up to you.
It creates, if I may again, it creates
Confusion.
for staff, whomever is creating that list is gonna be hell on wheels, to separate those that are within 500 feet.
Yeah, and who's in
versus
and
those
who's
who-
out.
You gotta do two lists, and, you know, if a portion of a
Okay.
property is within that radius and it's just a corner, do I include them, do I not? So that,
Okay,
I got a question, or maybe it's a
And-
bad question. A city block, how many feet it has, more or less? 100, 120?
A city block?
Yeah, more or less.
Usually about 520 feet, something like that. Because you got the separation of sewer manholes, which are 400 feet, so usually there's about 2 or 3 per block.
by the way, thank you, Ms. Rio, for sharing that. That was interesting. I did not know that, regarding what other municipalities and cities do.
yeah, there's other cities, for example, Miami Beach does 375 feet radius. For single-family homes, Hallandale does 300 feet.
Do you know if those are
So-
certified mailings or
No, those are not.
regular
Those are regular.
mail?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Board Member Rio that you mentioned Coral Gables was 1,500 feet,
For some projects, and for
projects?
some are 1,000.
and they do not send their mail certified. They
They
just
do
send
not.
it regular mail.
They
So
do
they
not.
save the cost of the certified mail, which is what
Yes.
costs
Yes.
the city. Okay, yeah.
Okay, I do agree that certified mail is the way to go. That alleviates, like Mr. Benna explained, residents coming and saying or stating they were not aware of a certain project being proposed. So definitely, I think the certified mail is the way to go. The only issue is how many feet radius.
Is it required though? Is a certified mail a requirement?
No.
No,
Mr.
again, the certified mail became a requirement when some of the residents that lived in the area were claiming that they had never received a notice.
Oh, okay.
Even though we had copies of the envelopes mailed to their addresses, they were still claiming that they didn't have notice. So at that point, it's when the commission, after Mr. Blanes suggested it, went ahead with including it as certified mail to each and every home.
And I think that that is a good idea.
The cost outweighed the doubt.
Yeah.
Yes, and the pressure on either us here as a board or the commission as well. It alleviates, like I said, residents from stating that they were not aware. If they didn't sign and receive the mail, that's on them. But,
And eventually we get those back.
so you have proof that they were
That,
sent.
that even after the first, second, or third attempt, they didn't pick it up.
Okay. I think maybe then, I would have stayed with the 500, but I see the issues that certain projects have caused, added stress and whatnot on the residents, and also on our elected officials. And I think the burden should not be on the elected officials in that regard, as far as if they were made aware of it or not. Maybe going the 3,000 and the dollar fee and the 1,000-foot radius would be the best way to go.
But again, my question is, how many other properties are we gonna have like those buildings? I mean.
Well,
there's a
that's in our comp plan, and basically, at this point, is 50% of the commercial property corridor that we have, which is 39 acres, so half of that is 19. So at this point, there's still plenty of area for development.
Okay. Any other suggestions, questions?
So maybe the consideration would be to send regular mail to 1,000-foot radius. Regular mail, the 58-cent stamp. And then the abutting ones, defining abutting, get it certified mail. That's something that could be done. You could even send the registration, what do you call the one that you get back?
Certified
Yeah,
receipt.
Certified
the
return
certified
receipt.
receipt, with that, and that,
But you're still probably gonna have some homeowners, residents that probably were not made aware of it. That's why I think having evidence that the city did notify them or made a good faith effort to notify the abutting residents of a proposed project.
yeah, well, the city has a list. When you create those mailing labels, you have a list of those people. If they're on the list, then they were sent, and if they
But-
say that, it's.
I know we've
the
been
city's
here-
board against the.
We've been
the-
here a lot of
residents.
A lot of
projects
times
that-
where they've questioned whether we actually sent them, yes.
Yes, we've had numerous residents throughout the years state that, and it puts Juan and Mr.
Yeah.
Pena in a really bad, situation, and that he then has to explain that, yes, we did mail them, we got the mailer and all that, but it there becomes his word against their word.
Yeah,
That's why I think the certified.
yeah, I'm of Mr. Paz's belief. Trust but verify.
Verify. That was what President Reagan's, how he said about the SALT talks with the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
We trust, but we verify.
That's correct.
Then you need a motion.
Well, you first got to come up with an idea of what you want, so I can write it down.
I will suggest that we go with the 500 certified and $3,000 fee.
Keep it at 500.
Like how it is.
Certified, like it is, with $3,000 fee.
Okay.
I like what Board Member Rio mentioned, the 1,000 feet with the regular 58-cent post, and then the abutting properties to require the certified mail.
Okay,
And
maybe a show of hands. We can, without any motions, do we all kind of agree on the $3,000 fee for this? I think that's a fair fee with the cost of staff and letters and mailing.
Correct. At this point, trust me, the fee that we're charging doesn't even cover staff. And barely does it cover the mail.
Wow.
So-
Yes, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then the other issue is the foot in radius or feet in radius.
And the type of mail.
And the type of mail.
Well, is this a straw vote? You don't mind vote on that. 500 and certified mail. I mean, we're just showing hand. This is not a motion.
I tend to agree with you in that for a regular homeowner doing small or needing a second story addition, having to go 1,000 feet seems a little excessive. Definitely for a big project along the commercial corridor, I would agree with the 1,000 foot radius, but we cannot, per the city attorney's
You
Rec-
cannot make two.
we cannot distinguish,
Right.
it's either all or nothing.
Well, I don't know as far as distance, if that's so. I believe as far as equity, you have to make it equal, but as far as distance, we would have to check with him.
Right, but I believe he said you cannot, like, say, for residential, a certain foot
Right.
radius,
He did say
and
that.
for commercial, another.
We'll verify that with him.
Or we can always compromise and go 750,
750 certified mail?
Certified?
certified,
Yeah,
certified mail.
yeah.
Yeah, we need to keep,
Will
I
the
think we need to keep.
$3,000
$3,000 is not gonna be enough,
It's
man.
not gonna be enough? Then we're gonna be the same.
I'm sorry?
To do 750 feet, certified mail, all of them, the $3,000 is not going to be enough.
You'll be in the same boat that you are now. don't
Yeah,
want to
you
spend-
probably would have to go up to $4,000.
Right.
And if we were to go 1,000, then obviously that's even more.
Yeah.
Right.
You gotta realize, in most cities, a special use permit start at $8,000.
And Mr. Penna, the 3,000, that was city staff that came up with that amount.
That's correct.
Based on a
Well,
500?
based on the amount we pay now to the Miami Herald for the ad, $8 to $1,200, depending on the size of the ad, and because that's what they require. And then usually, like I said, 100 or 120 properties at 565s, 580 certified mail.
And these would apply then only for special use?
That's correct.
Special use. Well, then the $1,000, it's, I mean, the 1,000 foot radius, it's like Mr. Rio said, or Mr. Ritos stated, we're gonna be in the same situation cost-wise
yeah.
for the city.
With staff and all that, yeah.
I really don't think the certified mail is necessary for the 1,000 radius. I mean, I've never had a problem receiving my mail, so I don't know what, I understand there's been issues in the past with
Lots
with
of
maybe one or
issues.
two residents per project that, you know, maybe because the person rents their house or they don't live there and they didn't receive the mail, but that's an issue with their mailing preferences, but
Hmm.
I don't know that it's, I mean, Ms. Rio is saying that this is what you do, right? So, and you're saying that most municipalities do not use certified mail.
No, they use the certified mail only to send them to
Abutting property.
Abutting property.
abutting properties, and then some others use it to
Yeah.
send it just to the associations, like if you have condo or HOAs, which we don't have any.
Right.
Well, no, we don't. Then those go certified mail. But in general, like the city of South Miami, for example, has the 500 foot radius abutting regular mail, 1,000 foot, 500 feet, and then the abutting is certified mail.
And that's physically abutting the property, correct?
Correct.
Also across the street and across a waterway, anything that if you stand
In
in
line of
any
sight?
corner, right, it's like you draw a circle around your property and then those are your abutting. Across the street, diagonal, behind you, and then of course
Right.
touching property lines.
Yeah, line of sight.
Yeah. I mean, doing it like that would alleviate the cost to the city tremendously, I think.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Save-
absolutely.
Even if you increase the radius to 1,000 feet, which is ultimately what they want to do, to inform more people, like she said, I do not think that by getting a certified mail would make me want to come here if I'm not
Exactly.
interested.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even go to the post office to pick it up. You know, it's honestly, yeah. So I would tend to say that I would like the 1,000-foot radius, and then abutting, and you know, you gotta define abutting. It's across the street, across any body of water, diagonal to you, and any property line that touches your property line.
Okay. Mr. Penna, would that be something city staff can rather easily perform
Yeah, regular mail, sure.
to the 1,000-foot radius, but the, like Ms.
Right.
Rio suggested?
Yes, line of sight. If
Certified.
you're standing on the property, any property you can see or in direct contact.
Wow.
You can see or touch.
Yeah.
Those are abutting.
That sounds like a good solution, a good solution.
I mean, more people will get involved. There's
Yeah.
less staff amount of work because the certified mails, I don't know if you guys have ever done one of those. I have.
Yeah,
And
it's
they're
not-
not, you know,
It takes time.
yeah.
And money.
It takes time and a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's wasted because the person.
Oh, a big
But you know
majority.
how many times the address, the mailing address that they have at the county, which is where you extract that data from, is wrong.
Right.
You know, instead of avenue, street, or the number, somebody, you know,
Mhm.
said something else.
No, and
or-
sometimes people just don't
Sometimes.
pick it up and we get bundles back.
Yeah.
And again, Mr. Penna, that's something city staff can easily or relatively easily handle.
Yeah, accomplished.
Okay.
If you made a motion, I'm ready to second that.
No, I was just making, it wasn't a motion, it wasn't a motion, it
Go.
was a straw vote.
Oh,
Well, if you can,
I would like to make a motion, I would like to make a motion to change the
Special-
ordinance to say regular mail to 1,000-foot radius from the property, and then, certified mail to those abutting properties, and then defining abutting as,
Line of sight?
anything that is across the street, diagonal to your property, and contiguous to your property line.
and before a second, can you address the fee?
The 3,000 feet.
$3,000.
Yeah,
$3,000.
fee is fine.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, on the motion, Eugenio Gonzalez?
Yes.
Natalie Milian?
Yes.
Diana Rio?
Yes.
Alvaro Lorido?
Yeah.
And I vote yes.
Okay.
That was a very good suggestion. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
You know,
You
I
know,
think that-
we can always revisit it, you know, if it doesn't
you
work
saw
If
me
it doesn't
doubting
work
it,
out.
I wonder if Commissioner Blanes will accept that, and then we're gonna go back. That was my doubt. Since he had a problem before, if one of the commissioners, well, it's not up to us.
Well,
Yeah.
we can always revisit it if,
We could.
you know, if a year from now and we see that there's a lot of people complaining, saying, oh, I don't get my notice, you know, we can always go back and
No, I'm talking about Commissioner Blanes or any other commissioners who will go away from the certified mail. That will put the city in a financial problem again. So that's my concern. If they want to stay certified, then, you know, the cost will be,
Exorbitant.
the
Yeah.
yes, that cost and
Well,
and the
at that
manpower.
point, if they decide during the review of the ordinance to adopt that they want to still stay with the certified, we'll advise them of the cost.
Okay.
Yeah, the manpower that you need to do a 1,000-foot certified mail is,
huge
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and not too practical.
it's not something that you do in a couple hours.
Okay, next item.
We already had to handle the ordinance for the fence. The first one that I gave you today, 9301. Which is the one regarding animals. And the reason why this is back is because the section that we have in the code regulating animals specifies that you're only allowed to keep dogs or cats, three of either type, or even three of each if you decide to have both. And nothing else, no pigeons, no fowl of any type, reptiles or anything like that. And as you can see, this is from 1993. What's come into question lately is there are some folks that are claiming some of these animals as
Emotional support.
emotional pets, trying to bypass the ordinance by the HIPAA regulations that don't allow you to go into that. So the idea is to bring this up to date so that it could be enforced with our code enforcement board. And then at the same time, perhaps bring in some regulation for the buildings that are developed, regulating that section of residential living also. Because if you decide to have 3 dogs or 3 cats in one of those buildings, multiplied by 300 units, you're talking about 900 animals. And size of the animal also plays into a role here. So this is something that we need to look at and decide how do we want to proceed.
Okay, this ordinance, Mr. Penna, specifically pertains to the killing of, correct?
It does, but it also refers back to the section of the code where it allows only dogs and cats.
Okay. And where is that, where it refers to the ordinance prohibiting fowl and, I guess, farm animals, for lack of a better word?
9301?
No, it's actually section 4 of the code. And
Oh, I see.
I don't think she gave me that copy, obviously.
Ordinance
This
around
is,
the
you're correct,
conflict.
this is just about killing. And the only change on this would be that we would have to follow the Supreme Court ruling on
Right.
religious provisions for that.
But I'm a little confused, because if, say, goats, if a goat is not allowed currently in West Miami, city of West Miami, you're not supposed to have one in the first place in
But
order.
if you bring it for a religious offering inside your house, you're allowed to have it and do whatever you wish to do with it.
Okay, but then that would be like a temporary
That's correct.
stay of that animal at that.
No, the animal has to be indoors at all time. It's not allowed to be outdoors. You can't bring it to your house, have it in the yard for the next 10 days and then decide to do it. It
Okay,
has to remain inside the house, inside the structure.
so then what can we change? It looks like
The
we
killing
should
part,
keep, well,
except for religious, whatever the,
Well, I would go back to prohibiting the type of animals that are being prohibited here, but however, allow for the part that the Supreme Court allows, which is the religious part of it.
But not the emotional support part.
No, the
since
emotional
that
support-
has not been taken to the Supreme Court, to my knowledge.
Correct. The emotional support is another section that is not covered in this ordinance.
Okay. So then by removing the killing part, would that that would comply then?
That's
with
correct.
So that's really the only word?
Well, again, it's removing the killing of the animal and the allowing for the religious interpretation
The Supreme Court,
that's allowed by the court.
so striking, killing?
Or adding
The provision of the court.
of the Supreme Court. So that really would be something that
Yeah,
our
Mr.
city
Villalobos will
attorney
have to
would-
draft and present it to us.
So what he should do is to be in compliance with the United States Supreme Court. He should put like an exemption allowing this for religious purposes. So we can still keep killing and all that, but then add the exception is if done for religious, or I guess you can't really put verifiable, but for religious purposes.
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, we had to verify once, a long time ago. It wasn't a pretty sight.
So then, do we need to take action on it now, or
I would just table it until Mr. Villalobos comes back with the interpretation that he wishes to use.
okay? So we'll defer ordinance 9301 till such a time as the city attorney comes up with the legal and necessary verbiage.
Correct. Then if you wish, we could go to 282, Section 4A, General Regulations, common to R1 and R2 and C uses, which regulates boats and recreational equipment. At the present time, residential homes or duplexes are allowed to have a boat, one boat, not exceeding 23 feet in length. That really needs to be defined because, as you know, or some of you may know, some boats today have extensions added to them to mount the engines outside of the boat. So the interpretation of the 23 feet is from which measurement, because the way they're registered, it starts from the bow to the stern, and anything beyond the stern is not counted. However, that still is part of the boat. So our interpretation needs to be defined, and also the area where it's stored at the present time is behind the front walls of the house and on a corner lot behind the front walls of either side of the streets. It also regulates what can be done on the boat, where it can be parked, whether that's the only item. Boats or trailer homes are allowed to park on the grass. They don't really need a paved surface to park on top of. And how how the equipment is kept. And then it goes into the car top boat, which is the normal small skiffs that you see some folks have. And then the camping equipment, again, also the size is the same, 23 feet. That definition needs to be interpreted better to whether it shall include any exterior apparatuses that are attached to the motorhome, such as the gas tanks or any other storage bins that they add to the back of the motorhome. And in this ordinance, the way it is right now, it actually allows you to use it as a, when somebody comes over, they could use it as a sleeping quarter, not to exceed 14 days. If you have a relative that comes in a motorhome to your house, he could park it in front of your house and sleep there for the next 14 days. Obviously, this is a very old ordinance also.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what you wish to do with that.
Father Daniel wasn't around that time.
Are jet skis are the ones you're referring to? The people that have jet skis on a trailer?
Jet skis, boats, anything that's on a trailer, really. Then, the ordinance actually regulates it. It doesn't allow, say my brother has a camper and he can't keep it at his house, he can't bring it to my house and park it at my house because I could have it. It has to be owner occupied. Owner occupied the property in order to have the piece of equipment there, registered to the same owner.
To the owner or to the tenant living in the house?
The owner or the tenant at the time, yes.
Like the RV or motorhome would have to be registered to that address, since they do need a tag per law, state law. So the license plate or the tag would have to, or registration would have to be that address. Is this also something that our city attorney needs to come up with, as far as like the 23
Well,
foot and?
Yeah, as far as the length of it, we should debate whether 23 is a reasonable size. And then after that, we come up with the language to regulate it, to make sure that there's not, at the 23 feet mark, we're counting trailer, or we're counting boat, or what are we counting? Because nowadays, the trailers seem to be larger, much larger than the boats. So,
Yeah, so it's the boat itself, not the trailer, we would be addressing.
but obviously, the larger the boat, the longer the trailer.
True. 23 foot is kind of a small boat from what I've seen a lot of our homeowners currently having. But then you can still have the boat as long as it's not exceeding 23 feet in length, as long as it's in the back or side.
Behind the front wall of the house.
Behind, okay. And that's a good point you said about the bracket and the outboard, because that usually adds about 3 feet.
3 to 4 feet.
3 to 4 feet easily, easily. And it really should be what the title or manufacturer states it is,
Not counting the bracket and the motor.
not counting that.
Yeah, she's looking at a picture.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know what a 23-foot long boat looks like. It's big.
Yeah, that's only the casco, you know, just the shell, not the bracket or
The hull.
Right, the
The
hull.
whole, yeah.
What is the hole? This part here?
De aquí hasta aquí. Then
Okay.
you see that bracket is about 2 feet and the motor is about.
Another like 2 feet
another-
easily.
Yeah,
So
easily
from here to
4.
here is 23 feet.
Right.
Okay, so that would be something our city attorney would have to come up with.
The language.
The language.
However, what size boat do we want to allow?
Okay?
What was the concern, like, why did this one come?
Well, because again, the ordinance is vague as far as where the 23 feet are counted from. It's like Mr. Paz was saying, we either go with the manufacturer's registration of what size boat they're considering it to be, because some boats nowadays come with extended brackets to the back, and the manufacturer might not include that as part of their 23 feet measurement.
Okay.
So we need to, if we're going to go with the manufacturer's statement on the title, then that's what we need to decide. And then we need to decide whether 23 feet is a reasonable size to have in a home.
Because I've seen some boats out there walking around. I've been doing a lot of walking around the city. I love boats. I used to have one. Wish I had another one. Can't afford it. But, so I'm a boater, always have been, not currently. But it seems like most that I've seen here, properly stored in the side and all that, exceed the 23
They're stretching
foot.
the 23-foot limit.
They're like 26, 27 feet, more or less. That
Easily.
seems to be the average size that I've seen. But they were not allowed to begin with, and
Correct.
so they shouldn't have had that size at all to begin with, since this goes way back, this ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the days, I had the perfect 001, remember that?
I had it
27 years
too.
ago.
I think mine is, it's single digit
I still
as
have it
well.
in my closet. Here. I'm gonna take a picture, bring it, 001.
I still have
25 years
mine.
ago, more.
I still have mine. I remember, just as a little trivia for the rest of the board, this boat issue actually was what made me become involved in the city, the politics, etc. Because when I purchased my house in '94, at that time you can pretty much store it in the front yard as well if you
Correct.
wanted to.
I
And
had
I'm
it
not going to
for a
mention
while.
the name, but there was a commissioner that, and no longer is a sitting commissioner, a former commissioner that had an issue because a neighbor was parking a big boat, but the tongue, the trailer, was extending.
Over the
Mr. Penna
sidewalks.
probably remembers, into the sidewalk, which that is obviously not allowed.
And a
But
hazard.
that then became a big issue, and the city then decided that it had to be behind the front
Wall of the
wall
house.
of the house. My particular boat, like half of it was behind that, and the other half was in front, the way my house was built. So like, Mr. Laredo, the city had a exemption that as the owner, you can apply, and they would give you a little decal you would put on your trailer to let code enforcement know that you were exempted.
Yeah, you were
because
prior-
had the
you were-
boat prior
You
to
owned the
Grandfather.
boat prior to the ordinance.
Grandfather in, I remember.
and it was grandfathered into the owner, not, maybe Mr. Bennett can correct me, it was grandfathered in to the owner, since people buy boats, like cars, every couple of years, if you got the funds to do so, you buy a new boat. So it wasn't for the boat you currently had, but as long as you own the property, you can sell that boat and get another one. But the 23 foot, I remember, was in effect at the time, and I had a 20. And I did my due diligence when I looked at my house and all that, and I saw, 23, I got a 20, I'm good to go. And I purchased my house, and like a year later, it was sometime around 94 or 95, 96, that this became an issue. And I came and spoke my first time ever speaking to the commission, lobbying the, but anyway, that's just a little trivia. But then, so we should then wait for the city attorney to come up with possible size allowed and to whether or not.
Well, I wouldn't leave the size to him. I would leave the interpretation of the measurement to him.
Okay,
The size I would, for you as residents to decide what a
okay.
a feasible size to have on these properties, knowing that you have a 25-foot front setback on most properties here, and then that obviously it has to be behind the front wall of the house,
But did
which not many properties have the ability to have them behind the front
Right.
wall of the house, only if it's within the ability. And then obviously exempting anybody that has the boat behind the front wall of the house and within the whatever size you decide prior to the ordinance.
Okay, but just to clarify something, really, there shouldn't be, per this ordinance, any boat greater than 23 feet,
Correct, but we don't want to go out and enforce, you can no longer have a 25-foot if you decide to change it to 25 feet. understand? We need a base point to start from in order to enforce
So-
whatever the new
I'm just
regulation.
trying to follow along. If a homeowner currently
If
is
a
able to-
homeowner currently has a 26 and you decide on the 23, we will cite them for having an oversized boat.
Okay, that's what
But you
I,
could cite him now because
Correct.
he doesn't have a permit.
But
for
there's
having a
no,
26
there's
foot.
no purpose in us citing them now
Right.
when the ordinance is up for review. Because we don't want to cite someone that will force them to sell the boat, change the boat to a smaller size, and then 2 months later, we come up with an ordinance that allows 25 feet boats.
Gotcha.
okay. And I can see how if if your neighbor has like a 32-foot cigarette, even though it's behind the front wall, I can understand how looking at a big boat like that all the time, day in and day out could be something unpleasant.
You go wide.
True.
So
True.
how close are you gonna be to the fence, to your neighbor's fence?
And usually they're like a foot or two, 'cause
If,
if that.
Sometimes it's a tight squeeze.
right.
Yes, I've seen some that you gotta,
Thank God some fences are wood.
yeah, or that the person backing that in is a really good driver, because it's not that easy backing in. 'Cause I've seen, like you said, a foot from the house and a foot from the fence line or a fence, so they're just threading the needle right there.
And not only the bracket for the engine, now they're doing for the anchor, they're doing like a.
Yeah,
Oh, the pulpit.
extending the prow.
Pulpit is
Mhm.
what it's called. That's true. I don't think the manufacturers list that.
No, they don't.
No.
Included in their length
Now
overall.
you're looking at 4 feet behind and.
And 2 to 3 feet forward,
in the
yeah.
front.
So if we were to say that the 23 feet would stay, but then we have to measure it from the front, from the hull, to the end of of the motor that goes in the back, if that's the length that's allowed,
Length, total length
the
then.
total length, how do we enforce that? You gotta get code compliance to go out there and measure the boat? Because the manufacturer is not gonna tell you, he's selling you a 20.
No, they do.
what they consider the boat size.
Right,
On the
right.
title,
And then the
it'll
person
state.
comes in here and says, hey, give me a permit because I got a 23-foot boat, long boat. So then somebody has to go out there and measure and tell him that the 23 feet is not what the manufacturer told them, is what we're telling
But
him,
that's-
that is from here to here. as opposed to
Correct, but that's
here.
why I say that the ordinance has to state that it's not
So-
what the manufacturer is stating, is the overall length of the boat, from front to back, including from the bow to the end of the engines.
How many people come to the city, this is out of curiosity, how
No
many
one.
people come to the city to find out what size boat they can purchase before they go and purchase it?
They do, and some also regarding,
Besides Mr. Potts.
and also some regarding motorhomes.
Motorhomes.
They do. It's very scarce, but few do.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question. Couldn't our recommendation be based on the distance from the property lines? Like, instead of the length of the boat, saying you can't have a boat that exceeds,
Like a setback.
like a setback, like, for a shed, for example, they say you have to come in a certain
Right.
amount of feet. I mean, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I don't know, that would,
That allows you for very large boats on some properties.
No, I'm not saying to do it like the shed. I'm saying,
No, but I'm saying
Putting the
if you
recommendation.
put a 25-foot front setback, which is fine, majority of the properties are 25 feet here, you're going to put them behind the front wall of the house. But then your setback to the rear is how much? Because some properties are very deep, some are not.
I see, because they're different, you're saying there's different sizes.
Mhm. Once you get to that front wall of the house, going backwards,
Mhm.
some people have 70 feet, some people have 40 feet. Where, you need to have a setback at that point to the back end of that boat. And basically, you're just giving them a size at that point of storage. So we rather regulate the size of the boat than the size of storage.
so basically, we're only looking at length, correct, Mr. Penna? Because everything else would remain pretty much the same.
Correct.
Do we have any idea what, like, the city of Coral Gables allows, for example, currently, or South Miami? or-
I don't
Um,
think they allow any boats.
Gables does, as long as it's behind the front wall of the house.
Which one, I'm sorry?
Coral Gables.
Oh, Coral Gables.
But they don't specify length. However, they do not allow any motorhome or RV camper or anything at all unless, I believe it's a 72 hours. So let's say you live in the Gables and you have a big RV. You can take it to your house, park it there no longer than 72 hours while you load it up for a trip. You want to put your clothes, your food, etc. Or when you come back from your trip.
Load and unload.
Load, unload, maybe wash it, and then take it to a storage
Storage
site.
somewhere
But
else.
they do, or somewhere else, but
Yeah.
no RVs or campers of any type. But the boats, as long as they're in the back, from the front wall to the back, are allowed. And I don't believe they have a size limit there. And I've seen some pretty big boats there too, like that, on land, not the ones in the
Correct.
water or anything.
If we do a 23 feet from the borders to the pulpit, you're looking at a 17 foot boat.
Yeah, that's
17
why
to, 20 to 17 foot,
20
yeah.
to 17, yeah.
I think the best thing would be to go with what the title or the manufacturer states. Would
Twen-
be the, because
With
all
the
the
maxi-
titles of the boats do say the length. When you buy a boat, the title, not only the whole serial number and make and all that, model, make, but it also states the length and the weight as well, too.
So keeping it at 23 is what you're suggesting?
Yeah, to allow for like a pulpit and brackets with outboard engines in the
And
back.
going by the manufacturer's statement.
I think that's the
I think
best
that'd
way to
be
go. It
Easier to
alleviates,
enforce.
easier to enforce. You don't have to physically measure. You can tell the homeowner, let me see your title, your registration, because the boat has a registration as well. And the trailer has a tag, but you go by the boat registration and it'll tell you the length overall, not including the brackets and the outboards. And it makes it easy on enforcing. You look at the paper, you don't even have to go out to the property or measure, just see what the registration or the title states.
What do you call, excuse my ignorance, what do you call that thing in the front that drags it? Is that the trailer?
The
Where you hook it
trailer.
up to your
where-
car?
Yeah, the trailer.
Okay, does the trailer stay on the boat?
Always.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, always. So the 23 feet does not account for that extra
No.
length?
No, and that's.
So I would suggest that all of the apparatuses that are attached to the boat have to be within, certainly behind that front wall.
Correct.
Correct.
Is that so now?
Yes.
Yes.
Does it say that here?
No.
Okay, we need to include that in here. If it's gonna remain at 23 feet, which I have nothing against,
Correct.
but I don't wanna see that
The trailer
trailer-
apparatus
trailer or any of those apparatuses.
has to be behind the front wall of the house.
Correct,
Okay, so
And
To
least
include,
that.
to include trailer behind the front wall of the house.
yes.
so it'd be the boat
Yes.
and the trailer.
So if
that
they
it's
have,
sitting on.
if they have 30 feet overall between trailer and boat, they have to have enough space back
On the
to
side.
push it
So
back
back it
30
up.
feet.
All the way.
Okay. All right, so.
You know, I've seen people that leave the car, or like the truck that pulls that boat, they leave it attached to the boat.
That's a county ordinance that allows them to have it 24 hours as long, not get cited. as
24
long as-
hours, but not forever.
No, as long as it's attached to the
Okay.
truck.
Okay.
I know that one because that's by my house and I got caught on that one
You
too.
got caught.
Okay. Okay. I've seen that one often. I mean, it doesn't really bother me, but I know it's not something that's permitted. Can we add some language in here that says precisely that? Or is that something already, like if you attach your,
Yeah, we should
your car
include,
to
we
it,
should include it that
remove it within 24 hours?
Correct.
Okay, so that should be included, and then the length, keep it at 23?
Yeah.
For what,
registration.
as for the manufacturer's registration or manufacturer's stated length, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, do we need to make a motion on that, Mr. Pena?
I could, yeah, if you want,
Yeah.
I could, read it back to you. And as far as the equally for trailer homes?
Oh,
Hmm.
no. No, we were just discussing boats.
Okay.
Right.
Do you want to make the motion for the boats first?
I won't make the motion. I'll
Or-
read what you have said to,
Okay, so,
which is a 23-foot boat behind the front wall of the house, to include trailer behind the front wall of the house. 24-hour attached to a vehicle has to be moved within 24 hours. And the size of the boat goes by the manufacturer's certificate of length.
I will make that motion, make it simple, like you read it.
Would he have to restate it or read it?
No.
in, or- No?
That's fine.
I can second.
Okay, and you have it, well, Mr. Bennett would know. Okay, on the motion, Natalie Milan,
That's only on the boat portion, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yes.
you vote yes, okay. Eugenio Gonzalez,
Yes.
Alvaro Laredo,
Yes.
Diana Rio,
Yes.
and I vote yes.
Okay. Now, as far as trailer homes,
And that's section 4A2.
that's correct.
Is it currently 23 feet?
We
also?
use the 23 feet length, yes.
For the boats.
The same
For-
as recreational
For-
vehicles,
Oh,
yes.
I'm
For
sorry.
RVs too.
Didn't see that. Okay, here, I see it here.
Okay, on the section B where it says, with the parking of such equipment by guests not to exceed 14 days. This is what you were talking about, that you have your family,
Somebody comes in from out of town in a motorhome, they could actually have it in front of their house for 14 days,
Regardless of the length?
regardless of the length.
do they
Okay.
need a permit for that?
No.
So then no, strike it. How are you gonna keep count of the 14 days?
I believe usually that would be perhaps a resident that either it's spotted by the code enforcement officer and/or a resident that brought it to the
Somebody
attention.
calls
And then
in.
once they're
Yeah.
cited, I guess that's when the clock starts ticking. Correct, Mr. Penna? They have to
Yes.
be cited, officially cited, for them to know they're in violation. And from that point on, they have 14 days to remove it,
Correct.
okay?
Yeah, but in the meantime, the neighborhood has lived with that for who knows how long in front of their houses.
Unless the code enforcement officer then may not have been properly observing
We all
or,
seen those cars in the highway, and the state trooper put a sticker on, or usually orange.
oh, when they're
With a date,
broken down,
right.
and if they don't
Maybe we
remove
can
it,
establish something like that in this ordinance, that they come and get a permit, some type of sticker stating the date, they just wanna keep it in there.
Well, for that matter, then all you have to do is put
Cite them.
a permit requirement.
Permit requirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
oh, okay. Hmm.
If you want to keep it, to allow the 14 days.
Right.
That's what you first have to decide. Do you want to keep it? And then if you want to keep it, how long do you want to keep it for?
Okay.
Okay, I think if there was a permitting process, I think it should be kept not to exceed 14 days, but you have to have a permit.
14 days by permit.
Okay, but if you own one of these and you wanna park it there, you have to meet the 23-foot long, and no setback?
Overall length and behind the front wall of the house.
Right, the 14 days is for like a visitor, a guest
Uh-huh.
from,
So
That
that
may-
would be by permit.
Mr. Peña, what happened to the case that we dealt with about 2 years ago on 21st Street, that they had a motorhome on the front? They still have it. The lady came here and then went to the commission. But they built the fence a little, the It's on 21st and 65th, maybe 64th.
They actually, the commission granted overturned your ruling and granted them to keep the trailer home at that time, that it was a 31-foot trailer home. And I believe they actually sold the trailer home and now they have a boat.
Okay, hopefully no larger than 23 feet.
Do we go by the county standards for these? 'Cause I believe the county extends a little longer,
Yeah, county extends to, I believe it's 25 foot.
or 30, I think. I think it's 30 for the RVs.
Is it?
I'm not sure about the boat, but I think the RV extends
Yeah,
to
the
30.
boat is 25 feet,
Oh, the boat is 25. And the RVs are 30?
Yes.
So is there a reason that we match them, or, I mean, that
I
we
mean, we
match them
can,
in this
but-
ordinance? Or, like, the 23 feet applying to both? Or should we go with, like, the county?
Currently, it applies to both. but-
Right, right. So I think the county has it at 30 and then at 25 for the boats. I mean,
Okay. Well, we can always do that if you want to extend the size of an RV.
I'm just wondering what the logic was behind putting, they're different vehicles, right? They're different.
Well, back then, you got to remember, this ordinance comes back from the 1950s. Most Airstreams back then were the motorhomes, and they were small in size.
Right, they were smaller and now they're like these.
Now they're
monster-
humongous. Now they can make them as big as you wish.
Yeah.
So the technology's there, so it's changed over time, so people, to make them has become cheaper, so people have gone and bought bigger.
Mhm.
Plus, families are bigger than back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've come a long way, the RVs, with slide outs, all kinds of stuff. They really have come a long way.
I think we should consider increasing that for the RV at least.
23 foot is a rather small RV.
Very small
you
RV,
know,
yeah.
Maybe a
I'm trying to imagine.
four-person, two-person RV. It's kind of small.
Because the boat is open, but the RV is enclosed, so,
And higher.
and it's a higher, yeah.
Actually, between boats now and the RVs, they're more or less about the same height, because most bimini tops are pretty well up there. They're about 12 foot, 11 foot height. And most RVs are in the range of 9 foot to 10 foot.
You're right, because they got the deep tops and all that, yeah.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion pertaining to RVs?
Well, let's start with the size. 30 foot? Follow the county standard?
I wouldn't have a problem with that personally, as long as these are, again, from the front wall towards the back.
That's correct. Same setback.
Same setbacks as the boat. 30 feet?
30 feet.
Everybody in
I think
agreement?
the reason behind the 23, now people are gonna say, well, you can have a motorhome
Whoa,
at 30, and
yeah.
now how about
How
me?
about the
My
boat?
fits right there.
You're discriminating against a
Right,
boat,
yeah.
or,
That could be an issue, think about it.
that's a very
And I think
good,
that- I remember when they did 23, so I don't know if this was, what year was this, Mr. Payne?
The change was in 88.
88, yeah, I was around,
Hmm.
yeah.
Does that have to do with the fact that the boat has extra parts though that might exceed the 23? Because what we were just talking about?
Right.
And the fact that the RV is just like start to finish, right? And usually it's a self-parking vehicle where the boat has the hitch and all that.
well, the motorhome could be a trailer also.
Could be a trailer too.
With that extension.
With
that-
the
trailer,
trailer, and
the
then,
trailer
like Mr. Penna
portion.
previously said, the propane tanks and
Right.
usually are outside, because you don't want them inside for safety reasons, and.
Yeah, that usually adds 3 to 4 feet to the motorhome.
So now you have a motorhome that's probably 33 and a boat that's 23.
Yeah.
Gonna
Hmm,
be so beautiful there.
that's true.
But you also have to have the space to keep them.
Right. And then
Well, true.
both.
boy,
I
it'd
don't
be
know, I
pretty
feel
hard
like
to.
with the RV, you kind of have, if you have it on the side, you kind of have like an extension of the house that's up to your property line, or to your fence, if you have a
Right.
fence. So.
Yeah, the RV is more
Because
cumbersome.
it's so big that when you allow it to be either 23 feet or 30 feet or whatever we end up doing, it's such a massive thing, it's like
It
enlarging
is more
the
massive
house.
than,
So you gotta
than a
look at it
boat.
from the neighbor's perspective.
It's like
I don't know,
having
I
a house
would-
built right
I
there
think I
on
would
the
rather
property
see a
line.
boat which is open than an RV which is,
A
you know, it's
structure,
got windows
like,
and
like a
it's
structure.
like a house, like an extension to your house, right up to my fence.
That's a good point too. I would also rather have have to see a boat than a big boxy RV or trailer. And Mr. Laredo makes a valid point. A resident's gonna come and say, why
Look at
boats
that.
okay? I
There's
mean,
boxes.
why RVs this size and boats this size?
Well, the county has a 5-foot difference in between the two, so
They
maybe
do,
split the
yeah.
difference or go by the guideline of the county.
So if you go by the guidelines of the county, then you have to change the
You have to change the
the
boat
one
one.
for the boats.
Yeah, or split the difference.
Maybe that's because I would assume more people here in South Florida anyway have boats
Well,
than they do
than
RVs.
Yeah.
I mean, you see like maybe 10 boats per every one RV.
Yeah.
Especially here in our little city. Maybe that's why the county went ahead and went with the 30, knowing that there's less RVs out there compared to boats, which are more prevalent.
And most properties that keep RVs usually are way out there with bigger lots.
Sorry. Spam call.
Do we have any, Mr. Peña, do we have any RVs longer than 25 in the city?
I don't believe so.
I don't believe so. 25, 23, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking.
And now RVs, I'm not familiar with the titling. If the manufacturer says it's, say, 23 feet, but you have like 3 feet of storage box in the front with propane
Yeah.
tanks, it goes back to like the transom and the bracket and the
I
outboards.
believe you can add like a trunk part to it too to take bikes and
A
things
lot of
like
them
that,
do have that as well.
the ATVs to take.
My
Mhm.
suggestion, Mr. Peña and Mr. Paz, if it's ain't broken, don't fix it. If it's not complaining, nobody complaining. Leave it at 23 and.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, my
yeah.
question is, why did it come before us then? I mean, I feel like it came for a concern, right?
Again,
To-
yeah.
To
Well,
revise it?
the mayor brought it up because she wants a definition as far as the vagueness of the ordinance, as far as the length, actually something to say what identifies the length,
Mhm.
the actual location stored on the property, and then when since they're both in the same section of the code, the motorhomes, the length again, and the storage on the property also, and how it's kept,
Have you had to,
and the usage of as a temporary residence.
have you had to cite anybody, since,
In the past, yes,
for RVs?
yes.
For it being too large or?
Being oversized or being used as a
House or
apartment.
apartment.
Okay.
An efficiency of some sort.
And they had to get rid of it?
They have to unoccupy it, yes.
How about Mr. Bennett, if we agree to leave, like Mr. Laredo stated, leave it at 23, but specify, like in an RV, the living area, and then anything like external, like a bike rack or propane tanks or whatever would not.
Not count into
would
the
not
overall
count.
size.
Will not be included
Just the actual box living area.
Again, we would go with the manufacturer's statement of size.
And I believe that's how they're probably registered, the actual, because somebody can remove the propane tanks and if they don't want them, and, or not have a bike rack if they don't want a bike rack. So we would fall back with the manufacturers, and those also require to
Title.
be plated. And they do have titles.
Okay, and if you go further down, it also talks about the equipment being operable at all times, and F, what kind of work is allowed to be done on them. Which I would eliminate a lot of that, that's called as major repairs.
Which section is that, Mr. Patrick?
F on the second page.
To eliminate that,
To allow no work on property.
okay?
That I can agree with 100%.
So then, strike out like major and just put no repairs.
Correct.
Okay, that sounds fair.
And then from major on, just delete that on the next sentence. No repairs or overhaul work on such equipment shall be made or performed on site.
So you're striking out all the way to the end? All the way to
From-
repairs?
The second line, majors, all the way to repairs, yes.
Yeah, because that would make it vague. Okay.
No repairs, period.
So then item F would basically state, no repairs or overhaul work on such equipment shall be made or performed on site.
Correct.
That's it. Okay?
Takes the vagueness out of what you're doing.
Okay. Does anybody want to put all this in a motion?
Wait, we haven't gotten through it all. G.
Okay.
Yeah.
Park on the site shall not be used.
Not allowed as sleeping quarters, not allowed for storage, and shall not have any lines attached to it. So we leave that as is.
That doesn't conflict with,
The word?
B?
That, yeah, it conflicts, well,
Not really, because you can have like a extension cord to keep the batteries charged up.
correct. But no, I guess she's referring as to
Living or sleeping?
occupying it as
As a living quarters.
a guest.
And I will add that it should have a license plate to avoid any storage.
Parked on site, such shall not be
Yes,
used.
well, that's the part that says up top, such equipment shall remain operable at all times. I would add to that section there, E, licensed and insured.
License and insurance.
'Cause that's the easiest way to know when it's abandoned.
Okay, and then G, what was G again? That you cannot, I mean, we definitely want to keep that. You're not going to be using
Correct.
a trailer for storage or living quarters. But then the part about lines attached to it, well, service, so that would be like sewer and water.
Yeah, they're talking about sewer lines.
Yeah, so that can remain intact then.
Yeah, that one could remain because it says as may be periodically be required to maintain the equipment and such appliances.
Right, so like a water hose to fill up
water
your
hose.
water tank,
Flush it out, things like
flush it
that.
out, clean it, or battery tender to keep the batteries charged in the RV or trailer.
Okay, then J would be not allowing it in apartment use districts or C districts. We'll keep that as is.
Okay.
And I like K because that would allow people not to rent parking space. Stop and think about it.
Correct.
That's true. So you can't run your
Like
little
Airbnb,
storage
yeah,
yard.
it wouldn't be a big-
Yeah, has to be registered to the property.
Right.
But then on B, we're keeping the by permit only for the 14 days, right?
For
By
yes.
permit.
By permit.
And the cost of that permit, we have to specify that as well?
Yes.
Hmm. What would staff recommend? Since it's a temporary.
Minimum permits here for anything else that you do is $150, so I would match that, so there's
Okay.
no confusion.
So via permit not to exceed $150, we
Sure.
can put.
Can it be renewed for another 14 days?
No,
No.
Okay, let's put that language
with
in
no,
there too.
with no renewal.
No renewal.
Non-renewable, right.
No renewal within 90 days. That's because, I mean, somebody may leave and come back in 90 days for another 10 days, and they're still vacationing. or-
That's a good point.
Yes, it is. I was thinking something to that effect.
You retire, want to go up north, and they come back, and whatever.
It could be 90 days, or it could be 60 days, or 180 days, whatever you wish.
Yeah, it could be a resident here that their parents are snowbirding, traveling on their RV, and they come every so often to visit their
Right.
children and their
90 days would be
grandkids.
fair, right?
Yep, I think it is.
Okay, so we could stop there as far as the recreational vehicle. As you make a motion for the recreational vehicle to be at 23 feet by the manufacturer's statement of origin. And no repairs on the equipment at all. Also, the parking of a recreational vehicle on your property for not to exceed 14 days from a guest is by permit only, and that permit should be $150 and non-renewable within 90 days.
Okay.
And such equipment shall be parked in the same condition as a boat, behind the front wall of the house. And such equipment shall be operable at all times, licensed and insured.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make that motion. We need a motion now, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we
Stated
do.
by Mr. Peña.
We do need a motion, so your motion would be as Mr. Pena just read for the record?
So moved.
Okay, so there's a motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, on the motion, Eugenio Gonzalez,
Yes.
Diana Rio,
Yes.
Natalie Milian.
Yes, we'll get to review this again, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Once it comes back in the
was-
draft form.
That was yes?
yes.
Alvaro Laredo?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, and the last part of that ordinance is regarding trucks on properties. Mostly, it talks about trailers or commercial type vehicles, but it's mostly about pickup trucks. or vans, what size they're allowed, because it goes into A, B, and C, and D, and E, and F, which is the regulations as far as what type of truck is allowed on the property. And if any of those are violated, it has to be within a completely enclosed garage. In other words, you could own a dually, but you have to have a completely enclosed garage to keep it in. If you keep it outside, it can't be a dual-wheel vehicle. As you may have seen, Nissan, Ford, Mercedes are producing these vans that are, I would say, exceeding some of the heights that we have here. So that is why we need to reinforce this section and see if that's what we want to keep, what's existing there now.
Maybe we should go with the 11 feet, like the RVs. Is anything taller than that, I don't think would clear many bridges and,
Well, actually, for the trucks, it has it at 9 feet 6 inches. Oh, no, that's
No?
that's a load space, I'm sorry.
it says 8 feet including ladders or other attachments.
Correct,
So total of 8 feet.
correct.
Do you know the height of those
That was my question.
Sprinter type vans?
They're getting up there. We haven't actually met, some will come right under 8 feet, but if you buy one that has like an
The
8.
high top version, they call
Well,
them.
there's a high-top version, and there are also external equipment like air conditioners, like for RVs that are placed on top, stuff like that, that goes beyond the 8-foot limit.
Is there any way we can get like that information at the next meeting and then
Sure.
maybe move this along the next time? Because we still have another ordinance to consider here and it's, you know, we really don't have concrete knowledge on this. I don't know anything about this, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe to get a recommendation from the city on that?
I'll
that
send Marty
portion?
out to start measuring.
Okay, can we, well, we did vote on the RVs, so
Correct.
now we're just addressing the trucks. Okay.
Could stop at this point and continue next week next month on the others.
I think, do you all want to do that? It is getting a little late.
We're talking about commercial truck or regular truck?
We're talking about pickup trucks that you could park in your residential neighborhood,
The reason why I bring that up because.
or vans.
Ladders on top, if you have ladders on top of your truck. that's a
Exactly.
commercial truck.
Exactly. That's why they limit it to, in the ordinance presently, to 8 feet. And if it exceeds that because of the attached equipment, then you're in violation.
Violation.
So do we really want to increase that height? Just-
No, I wouldn't recommend to increase
Okay,
that.
no, I wouldn't either.
I just-
That's-
But
I'm
we
trying
have the
to-
van issue, though.
Yeah, I'm trying to define this better because we have the vans that are being done by Chrysler and Ford and everyone else
Mercedes.
that have different types of tops. And they look normal to you, but when you go up with a measuring stick, they're way
pretty
over.
big. You can actually stand, oh, that's why they're
Yeah,
made like
so
that,
even
so
if
you
we
can
kept it
stand,
like
fully
this-
stand.
So if we kept it like this, it would reduce the amount of newer vehicles that will be, because the
But we
newer
need,
ones are lower.
correct, but we need to
taller.
define it to include
Okay.
all exterior equipment, stuff like that.
Yeah, what we need to do is a little bit of research as to, you know,
Okay.
these particular heights to, okay.
So then, we should defer the, pickup trucks and vans to next meeting, and also the discussion on, ordinance, the other items,
Yes.
and adjourn the meeting. Would you all agree to that, or
Is
go
this
back
one-
to the?
Is this one faster? Because it's about mannequins, I think.
Well, yeah, this one should be pretty quick, right?
Which
The
one?
next- The one about prohibiting display of articles and,
Okay.
2019, I'm not sure which.
Yeah, that's section 5 of the code.
Oh geez, I think we prohibited, we went through this.
You did once before, and then when it got to the city commission, they reversed your decision.
do you recall the reason why it was reversed?
Back then, it was, again, I think it was a 2005, 2007 time period where the economy was tanking. And these commercial property owners were saying that if they didn't display their merchandise, it wasn't moving.
Okay, I
Did-
did some,
No.
I did some research on the Mercedes-Benz vans. They go from anywhere from 96 inches to 114.
So, let
Yeah,
me see.
96 being the 8 feet mark and 114 way over.
Well,
But even 96 with a camper type air conditioning unit on it, now we're at over the 90s.
114, right? 114 divided by 12.
9.5 feet without any ladder or air conditioning unit or anything like that. Okay, 9.5.
So as you can see, the way the code was written back then, it did not allow anyone to display merchandise outside of a building. Then the interpretation that the commission adopted at that time, back in 2007, 2008, was that as long as you were within your, what do you call that, the lip on the front of the buildings, or
The overhang?
the
or-
overhang, or any type of awning that you had in front of your building, as long as it was within that they would allow it. This is back to eliminate that.
I would agree with
I agree
eliminating
100%.
it.
Eliminate.
Nothing outside except their signage that's permanently attached to the building.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember on 15th, 67th Ave, they used to have mannequins out there.
Well, they moved over here to 8th Street.
They didn't- And they have mannequins out there
Yeah.
too?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I
The
haven't
Faja
noticed. Oh, the Faja place. Yeah, I didn't notice it. Yeah, that looks kind of tacky.
So we're going to keep everything within the building.
I think the general consensus
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
board would be that.
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that, Mr.
Yes, please, so we could draft an ordinance.
Okay. Would somebody care to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to allow the display of merchandise
Not allowed.
inside the premises only of licensed business. Nothing on the outside, no display of merchandise outside
At all.
at all. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Okay, there was a motion.
Second?
Okay, on the motion, Eugenio Gonzalez?
Yes.
Natalie Milian?
Yes.
Alfredo Lurido?
Yes.
Diana Rio?
Yes.
And I vote yes too.
Okay.
May I, before we adjourn, is there an ordinance, or is this something more of a code compliance, or maybe police, I don't know, for the buildings on 67th, and I'm sure the ones on 8th Street is the same situation, the Uber drivers and the Lyft drivers park on 67th.
They stop there
They
all the
stop,
time.
they blink their lights, and people get in and out, they say goodbye, they wait to look for
I think
change
the
in their
police
purse.
needs to
Well, in
keep
the
a,
meantime, we're behind them, and it's only gonna stop when an accident happens.
Well, actually, it's come up before. I mean, it's been complained before to the commission. The police department is aware of it. They do enforce every time they catch either a delivery, a guy coming and stopping in the middle of the road for dropping off a delivery or a pickup for Uber, they do cite the person, especially on the buildings off of 67th Avenue, because there is an area there that they could go into, which is between the two buildings, to pick up or deliver food.
That's
So
happened to me so many times.
So
Yeah.
many times, but is there something that we can, change, something that we can bring up?
Actually, that's regulated
or
by state statute, so there's nothing for us to do.
There's nothing for us to do, other than the next time we approve one of those buildings, we put that in one of the,
Create
conditions?
you could create a drop-off or pickup area.
Loading zone.
well, these buildings have a drop-off pickup area, except nobody uses it.
No,
So
Yeah,
it's
they
would
really
have to go
the
in,
property management that is responsible for telling their tenants, no, you can't have your Uber pick you up there, he can come pick you up here.
Or a provision for them to police it, yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be, one tragic
Yeah,
accident
I
is
see
waiting
it
to happen.
every single time I drive by there.
Every
It
time,
seems there's
every time.
always somebody, usually at night, it becomes more of a problem, or at least when I've noticed it, it's been nighttime. And yes, they stop right there, and that's a travel lane, and they're not big trucks, they're like regular cars. I can understand if a big semi parked there temporarily unload, I think that's allowed, by
For
statute.
delivery purposes, yeah.
No,
for-
they
for a
have
big
loading,
truck.
they have loading docks in those buildings. We
Correct.
approve those loading docks, as a matter of fact, they're required. So,
Mm-hmm.
no,
But
nothing
that
should be
has to be
stopped
the
in there.
police would have to stop.
I'm gonna get cited
this-
because I honk at them so bad.
Yeah,
Release
maybe-
my frustration, it doesn't do anything to them, but.
Yeah, it's-
I would suggest not doing that. in
It's actually-
today's,
I know, I
climate,
know, I
you
know, I
like,
know,
especially
I know.
some of the people that.
Yeah, it's pretty risky on their part,
I know.
because
Not in that.
I know.
the way people drive today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy would
Yeah,
pull out
but,
their Glock. And
but it's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It
For real.
is. It is. Okay.
Motion to
That's it.
adjourn.
Second.
Atlanta 3, Houston 0.
Uh-oh, that's right, they start tonight.
The City of West Miami Planning and Zoning Board meeting of October 26, 2021 is now adjourned. It is 9:15 p.m. for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please take your books and bring them back. We haven't given you one of those? Okay. No, we'll get it to you.
Good night, everyone.